Marbury versus Madison. William Marbury was one of the Federalist judges removed from office by the Judiciary Act of 1802. After Thomas Jefferson became president after the election of 1800, he pushed through the Judiciary Act of 1802. Now, the Judiciary Act of 1801 had been passed with the intention of keeping Federalist judges in place after the election, but Thomas Jefferson passed an act a year later that removed 42 of those Federalist judges. So William Marbury was one of those Federalist judges that had been removed from his office. Marbury, having been promised a job, brought up the issue with James Madison, who was then Secretary of State, but James Madison pleaded ignorance. He said, "I don't know anything about this promise you received. I'm not going to honor it." Now, the issue became contentious, and in 1803 came before the Supreme Court as Marbury versus Madison. Although Section 13 of the Judiciary Act of 1789 had a writ of mandamus which required Madison to honor the appointment, Chief Justice John Marshall declared this section unconstitutional. So he declared Section 13 of the Judiciary Act of 1789 unconstitutional because he said that that was beyond the scope of the Constitution. It was inconsistent with what the Constitution actually gave Congress the power to do, and so the Supreme Court under John Marshall said that actually they didn't have to honor giving Marbury that job because what he was claiming he should get the job under was actually an unconstitutional part of the act. This was a historic act. Before now, the Supreme Court had not declared measures unconstitutional on a national level before. So, this was something that Congress had enacted. It wasn't something that was a state law or state situation that they had said, oh, that's unconstitutional, we're not going to have any of that. This is on a national level where the judicial branch was checking the legislative branch. So it was a very important event in the scope of the United States history because it was giving the judicial branch more power, or at least establishing that the judicial branch had that power. Since the three branches of government are supposed to have checks and balances on each other to make sure no one branch becomes too powerful, it was very important that the judicial branch was showing they had this power. Marshall established an independent judiciary with this case. He is quoted as saying, "The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, with the Supreme Court as the final interpreter." And that is pretty much how it goes. The Supreme Court gets to interpret the Constitution. If there's a part in there that's up for debate, then the Supreme Court can interpret it whichever way they think is most fair or most what the writers of the Constitution had in mind. So Marbury versus Madison was a very important case because it did establish that the judicial branch, in the form of the Supreme Court, could declare an act of Congress unconstitutional. So the judicial branch had that important check on the legislative branch. So this is very important in the scope of United States history.
To find out more about how to ace your test and get more practice for your test, click the study guide. Learn why Mometrix is the best and smartest decision you could make for your test prep choice. We have done all the work cutting through the fluff to give you what you need to perform well on your exam. Click the study guide to get started now. And thank you for watching and learning with us.